Hi, Christina.
Hi, Barbara. Good
Hello,
morning.
ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning. Who do we have on?
This is Cheryl.
Hi,
Hi.
Cheryl. Thank you for recording, by the way.
My pleasure.
All right. I see we also have Hunter on the line as well. Okay.
He may not have a microphone.
Got it. He could always call in, but again, we'll be hosting, so
Oh, I'll
that's
put that
okay.
number in there. You know what? I had only put the link in the email, so I'll get the number and put it in there.
Wonderful. Actually, Cheryl, you can try to enter it into the chat. I think he could see the chat, right? Oh, we have Tim. Welcome, Tim.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, everyone should see the chat, should be able to see the chat.
Excellent. Barbara, thank you. Nice. Thank you for pulling the accounts, prepping everything.
Well, I'm going to do a test account because that way I can cover the tips high level. So
Excellent.
that's what I would do.
All right, we have a few minutes. So, how is the weather in Arizona right now?
All right. If you ask my husband, he'll tell you it's hot. If you ask me,
Okay.
I will tell you it's perfect, but it's
Hmm.
it's hot.
It is hot, huh?
Yes.
Uh,
I like the heat, so I still go for my walks in the morning for my hour walk and come back, and he just looks at me, and you can see him already hot.
oh no. Yeah, I'm similar. I can take heat, and
Yeah.
then it's crazy. My daughter actually has my husband's genes, so she cannot take heat and she like burns up real quick, and
Oh.
yeah, it's bizarre. So,
Like after every training, I go out for a walk for 5 minutes, like step around the house or and I go out the door, and he's like, "Lock the door." I'm like, "Oh, just,
right.
I'm just gonna take a spin around the house and come back in."
Uh, yeah, just cannot take any of the heat, huh?
No,
Oh boy.
but he loves it here from September to April. He loves it.
Oh,
Yeah, the weather is just perfect in Arizona around that time.
yeah. Geez, I swear every time I visit, and Barbara, I've been out there with you. It's always July,
Yeah.
and I and I feel so bad for Debbie. I used to bring her, and
Yep.
she told me she does not like the heat. So,
Oh.
but July is just, it's when everything is happening. I cannot, I mean, you just can't miss it. So, but anyhow, okay.
We have about one more minute, and we'll get started.
Wonderful.
All right.
All
According to
right.
my clock here, it is 9:30. Christina, we should get started. So you can take it
Wonderful.
away.
Thank you, Barbara. All right. Well, let me start my video real quick.
Oh, I'm sharing my screen. Oh, you're
Oh, you
sharing your
are.
your
I'm just my
picture. Oh,
video.
oh,
Is
just
that?
your video.
I'm trying here with my background. Yeah. So, um, we have to be at home, most of us. So that's what I mean. But anyhow, everyone, welcome. I'm Christina, by the way, in case you don't know or you've never met me. I'm your sales executive, um, and I hope everyone can listen in. If you can't, um, instead of choosing computer audio, you can join by phone. So Cheryl will be sending out information on that very shortly. And also we are recording this call, so you can check on Canyonlands U University online. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm your Traveler Sales Exec, and I'm joined by Barbara Hogan, our Senior Agency Trainer, here to help you get the most out of our select products, especially during these uncertain times where small businesses need you the most. So whether you are a pro user of our system or just starting out in commercial, you will be properly equipped to provide your client the best in-class coverage for the best price. Okay, all right, and next slide. So in the next hour, maybe shorter, here's our agenda. Today we're going to go over a highlight, which is an extra 5% commission for BOP work comp. And I'll share the rules, how that works. And also we're going to do a BOP quote demo on the tips and tricks to give you the best price for the best coverage. So after that, we'll have a quick Q&A session, and let's start talking about the extra commission. That's the fun part. All right, so for all Canyonlands agents, if you exceed $50,000 in select new business within 3 months, and that would be all Canyonlands agents. So the referring agents, if you have a direct code, everyone can add to this $50,000 as long as it's new business within 3 months. You will qualify for extra 5% in commission. So the last day to issue a policy would be September 30th. And note, I said issue. Issue means within, like if you issued, say, an effective date of October 1st, an effective date of October 30th, it would still qualify as long as you issue by September 30th. All right. And
When does it start?
it's starting now.
Okay.
So thank you for asking that.
Mm-hmm.
July 1st is when it started. And from July 1st, we had 3 months. We have 3 months. Okay. All right, so I also wanted to cover an extra tidbit of extra commission. We are giving up to 20% extra work comp commission for the following states, and that would include New Mexico, Illinois, California, Colorado, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan. I mean, the list goes on, but I highlighted New Mexico, Illinois, because I know we have a few agents out of there, and they are getting 20% work comp commission. So you'll be able to see it when you enter a quote in work comp, and our system will automatically default to the 20% commission. So in essence, if you're adding up our extra 5% commission plus the 20, you can get up to 25% in commission for a work comp policy. So that's a pretty sweet deal. If you do.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
The 5% extra commission, would that be for BOP, auto, and work comp?
It would only be for BOP and work comp. Good question,
Okay.
Barbara.
Oh, it says it right there, Barbara. Pay attention.
No, that's okay. I did not mention it, and I know some of the folks are joining in on phone, and yeah, I appreciate it. So, all right. So the key here in extra commission to get the extra 5% by September 30th is that we all quote. So together we can do this. And I mean, it's really simple. 50,000 is not a lot. We write policies up to $100,000. And actually, Barbara, if you could go to the next slide, we'll talk about what types of policies we write, our appetite, our targets. So, all right. So here is a quick flyer on what's hot, what's not. Travelers Small Commercial can write premium anywhere between $500 to $100,000. And the lines of business we write include BOPs, work comp, auto, in case you haven't tried yet. All of these lines can be written monoline We even can write monoline GL and monoline property. So monoline property is new. I'll share that I ran Canyonlands hit rates with travelers in specific, and for the following industries, you are above average as far as the hit rate. On building, you're at 36%. Doctors, you're at 50%. Restaurant, 47%. And financial services, 50%. However, other agents are finding success in pet care, day spa, personal care, lawyers. They're issuing at over 40% on average for these industries, and I think you can too. So keep your ears tuned. We're going to show you how, but also just right below what we can write, key in on travelers' targets, financial services, healthcare, personal care, pet care again, retail, and tech. All right, you're going to find that you won't waste time and you're going to have the most success. Okay. All right, Barbara, ready for the next slide. Beautiful. Okay, so now we will cover quote tips with Barbara, where she'll dive into our system to show key rating factors and credits available. Fun fact about Barbara, she quotes to bind. So because we're all here to write business and she doesn't waste time. So Barbara, we appreciate your time today, and please take it away.
Thank you. I don't know if it's a fun fact, but I do like to write business. So
it's very fun for us.
So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to take you guys through how to quote a BOP policy from the policy effective date all the way to the code summary page. And I'm going to touch on the things that affect your quote. Regardless of if you quote in California and you get the BOP 1.0, or you quote a risk in Arizona and you get the BOP 2.0, some of the tips that I'm going to go through with you would apply to any BOP policy that you quote with Travelers Small Commercial. You are seeing our Travelers for Agent website. I am on the home page. The home page was basically designed for notification for any policies that you already quote with Travelers. It does have your quoting tools. It has your reports that you have access to. But basically, the home page was designed mostly for here's how you get somewhere quickly. When you're going to quote business, you want to be familiar with this quote and issue tab, and that's where I'm going to go. So quote and issue will give you all your quoting applications that you have access to. Christina and I, we work for Travelers Small Commercial, and Small Commercial is Small Business Travelers Express IE Net. That is our rating platform. But the reason why I go to quote an issue is because it does give me some additional information. And I'm going to scroll down just a little bit to talk about what those are. Most importantly on this page is what we call our appetite guide. This is what we do in small commercial. It is your key to writing business with small commercial. Now, why you should know about the appetite guide, and I'm going to click on it, is it does give us all the things we can do in small commercial. If you click on commercial real estate, it gives you the classes of business we can write. Do we write lesser's risk? Yes. Do we write commercial condos? Yes. Anything with a green or a blue, we would write. Anything with a red, we're not going to write. Christina pointed out all the ones that your agencies are excelling at. But then she said some agents are writing a lot more things like personal care, like financial services. If you want to know what are those types of businesses, you just simply click on that industry. And what you care about the most is, what do we want to write in that industry? What are the things we target in that industry? Christina says we can write policies from $500 to $100,000. Well, in Select, we really don't write policies based on the premium size. We write policies based on the account size. So if you're writing a pet personal care service, You can write a business that has up to 15 million annual sales, up to 5 million per location, total insurable value. That's your building and your BPP. If you add them together and they're less than 5 million, it falls in small commercial. You also want to look at the things we want to write. So for under personal care, we would write a new venture. If you click on garages, you will see that we don't want to write a new venture. They have to be in business for more than 3 years. This is where you will find that information. These are the kinds of things we cannot do under that industry. So the appetite guide is your key to knowing what we can and cannot do. And it will give you the classes of business we will write under that industry. So before you jump in to quote anything with small commercial, you should always review the characteristics and the things we cannot do, the size of the business. It would also tell you coverages that we can offer under that industry. This is the box that we live in. These are the industries that we can write. So you should always review them and see what we're looking for under that industry. Now, once you've looked at the risk and you say, yes, travelers can write that risk, then you will jump into Small Business Travelers Express IE-Net. And that's where I'm going to go next. This is where you will quote, you will bind, you will print your proposal. This is where our policies live. Once you issue that policy, you will come back in here if you want to endorse that policy. But if you want to pull up the policy paper, you will just go over here where it says customer snapshot. And this is where you can look up the policy paper, billing information, loss information, audit information for a customer. But to quote, bind, endorse, you will go into the Small Business Travelers Express IE-Net system. When you get into the Small Business Travelers Express IE-Net, this is where you can go and search for customer by name, account number, policy number, and any customer that you have written. Work list is anything that has been quoted and not issued in your agency. And it does go by the producer code. I started a quote this morning, so I'm going to go up here where it says customer account, and I'm going to pull up that quote because I don't like to establish it. And we don't like test quotes, but I'm going to do a test one today. So this is how you can search for them by account number, policy number. But when you click start a quote, you are going to type in the customer name. So this is a test. That's what I wanted to know. So I'm going to go back. This is a test, doctor. So when you're starting the risk, you'll click start a quote. And this is when you're starting it for the very first time. And it's called, this is a test, DR. And you choose the state where that risk is located and you hit search. When you do this, it is going to bring up any accounts with this name and in that state. If you see your customer listed here, you click on it. If you click on it and it gives you this error message, it means that that customer is quoted by another agency and it's blocked. So your agency will not be able to quote that customer. If you click on the customer and it allows you to go forward, it means that you can go ahead and quote that risk. When you establish that customer, let's say that customer was not there and you have to now create it on the travelers database. When you are creating that customer, you want to make sure this is the legal entity name of that customer. This is the mailing address because this is where we are going to mail the invoice. And this is the customer's business phone number. We will use the legal name and the correct business number to reserve that customer for your agency and block it from any other agents quoting it. So those two pieces of information is important when you are establishing that customer on the traveler's database. So if their legal entity is a corporation, that is their corporation name. If their legal entity is an LLC, that's the LLC name. If their legal entity is an individual, that's the person's name. We don't want you to use the DBA name. You want to use the legal name of that business. So once you input that and you establish that account, we are now going to reserve that account for your agency for 90 days, and no other agent can quote that policy within that 90-day period. If you did not quote, bind, and issue a policy within 90 days, then we are going to open it up for someone else to quote it. So that's why sometimes you can find it on that list. So when you see it on the list, click on it. Okay. Now we are on what we call the account summary page. It will give you the account number for that risk. Once you quote it, it will show you the premium, and it would either give you your underwriter's name or it will give you an email address. And we'll talk about that after. Now, in the note in the middle of the page, it says to start a quote for this account, select the line of business from the left navigation bar. This is your left navigation bar. When you are adding a policy, you can add an auto, you can add a BOP, you can add a work comp. You cannot add an umbrella. The reason you can add these 3 lines of business is because you can write them monoline. You cannot write a monoline umbrella. You always have to write the BOP or the GL in order for you to get the umbrella. And yes, we can do monoline GL in Arizona, New Mexico. We cannot do it in California. But if you are going to write a monoline GL, you can simply click package BOP, and then you will have the option to choose if you want GL only. We can also do property only. And how you do that, you click package BOP, and then you will see if that qualifies for property only. So today we're going to do a BOP, so I'm going to click on package BOP. Now, while we wait for that to come up, in Traveler Small Commercial, you can do a monoline auto, monoline work comp, monoline BOP, monoline property, monoline GL. That's the reason why you have to add each line of business separately. You have to propose it separately, and you have to issue it separately. We don't have like a combine. You can combine the BOP and the work comp on the same policy. They have to be separate policies. So when we get into the policy information page, your premium can be affected starting with your effective date. That can affect your pricing. So when you're quoting, if you know the effective date of that customer, you go ahead and you type in the effective date of that customer. Then we're going to ask you, do they currently have a enforced policy? You tell us, when does that enforced policy expire? So let's say their policy is expiring December 24th. When you input these 2 pieces of information, our system is going to take that information. It's going to do a calculation behind the scenes, and it's going to apply something called an early shopper factor. We can apply anywhere from 4 to 15% on a policy based on how far in advance you are quoting that policy. We apply it the first time you establish that policy, because we don't want agents to go in and play with the effective date of the customer to get, do I get 4%? Do I get 15%? Do I get 10%? So the first time you quote it, you put in your effective date. When their current policy expires, we are going to apply that early shopper factor. You cannot come back and play around with it. So you just want to make sure you know what is the effective date of this policy, because that's what's going to affect your early shopper factor. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. If your governing state is your mailing state, and we default the mailing state, you just simply answer this question and you continue. If your mailing state is Arizona, but they're located in California, this is where you will change. Governing state is where that business is located. We are going to ask you, does the applicant have operation in the states other than Arizona? You have to keep in mind, we are writing this customer here. So if this named insured have a policy in California or New Mexico, and you're going to add it to this account, you will answer yes here. If this named insured only has one location and that location is located in Arizona, you will answer no here. I think agents get confused when we ask the question, does this applicant have locations or operations in other states? It's if this named insured here, and we are going to add that location to this policy. And that's what we are trying to get here. So we only have one location for this named insured, and they're located in Arizona. So I'm going to choose no, and I'm going to hit continue. What the answer to that question does, it gives you the new BOP 2.0 screens, or it gives you the old screens. And that's dependent on the answer to this question here. So you want to make sure you understand it and you answer it appropriately. Down here is named insured. If that named insured is an LLC and it ends with an LLC, you make sure you type it in there. If they have a DBA, this is where you're going to type it. So this is how you will input the named insured. Number of employees, sometimes we will default that information. If we default it and it's incorrect, you can overwrite it. If we did not default it, you can fill it in. This is their legal entity. Business principal, that will be the principal name. If you don't know the name of the principal, you just click not sure. Once you input this information, we're going to talk about the address. If the mailing address and the location address is the same, you don't have to do anything here. If the location address is different, you simply uncheck this box where it says same as predominant location. This is the part that I really like the BOP 2.0. We've made some improvements when classifying a business. So what we've done is we take the named insured, we go out to Secretary of State website, we go out to, I think it's called Links or Linksys or something like that, or we look at the named insured and we give you some recommended classification. So what we're saying is your customer probably does one of these things here. So go ahead and select the best class that describes your customer. So if you see the class that describes your customer, you simply click on it here and you click select class. Once you pick the classification, we are going to give you an explanation of that classification. So you can read it and say, yes, that accurately describes my customer. If you don't see the class that best describe your customer over here, you can simply go to the right-hand side here. You can search for it by a keyword, or you can browse the industry, choose that industry, and then it will give you everything we write under that industry. And then you choose the one that best describes your customer. When you select it, you click select this class. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to give you the explanation. We'll show you the GL class code that goes with that customer. Sometimes your agency management system has the GL class code or the NAICS code or the SIC code. So you can verify that you have the right class. We also have other classes that you can click on the drop down and read the explanation for those classes of business. So you want to make sure you verify it and you have the right class. The classification sets all your underwriting questions. It sets our base rate. It sets the appropriate coverage. So it really is the most important thing when you are writing a risk. We will go down here. We will ask you if this customer does any of these things here. You go down the list. If you check one of these things and you continue, we may decline it. This is where we are pre-qualifying that customer to give you a quick decline if they do one of these things here. So once you complete your business classification information and you hit continue, then the system is going to give you the option for BOP, property only, or liability only. So if you want to do a GL, liability only, this is where you will make that change. Or if you're writing property only, you will make that change. But if you're doing GL and property, that's the BOP. Once you choose your product here and you continue off this page, you cannot come back and change your mind and say, oh, wait a minute, I coded the liability only, but really I wanted the BOP. You cannot come back and change the product type. You will have to start a whole new policy. You can start a new policy under the same account summary page, but you cannot come back and change that policy once you read it. If this customer has multiple classification, so here's a good example. Let's say this building, this customer owns this building and they occupy a portion of the building, but they also rent out a portion of the building and they want some lesser risk coverage for this building. You can, does this business have an additional operations? You can click here. You can browse by industry, or you can do keyword. I'm going to say I want some less, and you have to read these and understand them. You can't just pick the first one that comes to mind. You can scroll down, go down, look at the classification. This one, they have some additional offices in there. So I'm going to pick lesser risk only, office without restaurants. When I choose that, I'm going to read it, make sure it defines what my customer does. I click select. I answer these questions here. Customer occupies more than 25% of the building. You can answer yes or no there. And then you say no, 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 no. If they occupy more than 25% of the building, sometimes there are different rules. So that is why you have to answer those questions. But now you have two classes of business on the same policy. We're going to go ahead and hit continue. The next page that comes up is we will have some additional questions for you to answer. If you answer yes to this question, we want to know why their insurance has been canceled, declined, or non-renewed. If you answer no, you don't have to answer any additional questions. Down here, if they have any claims, you will click add loss and you would input the claim information. This information will affect the eligibility of that policy. If they have claims, it will also affect your pricing. So you want to make sure you input that information. We are looking for 4 years loss runs. If you're writing the BOP, that would be any general liability, any property, or any business income type losses that they have that you would type in here. Once you're done inputting the information, and now, oh, for your agency, this is also very important. We usually default the name of the ID that is being used. If it's not you, override it with your name. Fill in your email address and your phone number, because we have multiple producers using the same producer code. So you want to input your information here, because if Christina or the underwriter or even I sometimes review accounts, we want to know who coded that account. So if we need to reach out, we have your information available. So once you're done with this page, you will go ahead and hit continue. And then it brings you to the location page. This is where we will default the address. If you had said you unchecked that box earlier, if the mailing address and the location address was different, this is where you will come in and type in your location address. You notice under the business classification section, it brings up both classes of business that we have for this customer. So let's say their doctor's office made 250,000, but the portion of the business that they lease out, their rents for the year is 100,000. This is where they will get GL coverage for both types of operations. In the BOP 1.0 world, the revenue does not always affect your pricing. But in the BOP 2.0 world, it will affect your pricing. So you want to make sure that this information is accurate, because this is the information that we are going to use to create your general liability premium. So you always want to verify it. Make sure you have all the different types of operation that that customer does and break out their total annual revenue. This is total annual revenue. Then we're going to gather some information about that building. So first of all, we want to know the occupied square footage. What square footage of this building does this doctor occupy? So I'm going to put in what square foot of the building they occupy. We will pre-fill the year of construction, the number of stories, the construction type, the sprinkler, if we were able to retrieve that information using this address. If we pre-fill it and it's not correct, you can override it. If it's correct, you simply continue. When a building is 100% sprinklered, we will have you, the agent, acknowledge that Travelers is adding that ISO protective safeguard endorsement onto this policy. And that sprinkler has to be fully functioning automatic fire protection. The entire building has to be more than 80% sprinklered. You also want to verify with that customer that that sprinkler is being regularly maintained, because you are acknowledging that we are adding that protective safeguard endorsement on the policy. If they own the building, you will click building coverage. You will notice that sometimes we will fill in the total square footage of that building when you're writing building coverage. That is important because our system is going to use that information to calculate the reconstruction cost of the building. Again, you have to verify with the customer that that information is accurate. If the building was more than 30 years old, we are going to ask you to tell us, and you must answer yes to this question and fill in when that roof was updated or replaced. The roof have to be updated or replaced within the last 30 years. Then we will choose building occupancy. That is the type of occupancy in that building. All we have in that building are offices, and anything 1 to 4 stories is low rise. So I'm going to choose office low rise. Once I do that, the system used all this information that I input about the building, the year it was built, the number of stories, the construction type, whether it's sprinklered, whether the roof was updated, the size, and it says, and the type of occupancy, and it says it will be $1,026,364 to replace that building. So this is where we calculate the reconstruction cost of the building within our rating system. You can click these blue hyperlink. We tell you what we use and how we calculate it. You can click this reconstruction default. You can update any of these information. If this is a nice building and it's better than average, you can change it here. You can make any of these changes you want. Click save. If you change anything there, You notice we cross out that limit. You have to recalculate it to get the appropriate building reconstruction cost. You can use this limit if you want, or you can use a separate limit. As long as your limit is higher than our limit, it's okay. Because we recommend that you insure the building at least 100% insurance to value. And what this is 100% insurance to value. Okay. Now, if you have multiple locations or anything like that and you want a blanket, you can click include in blanket. If they have some BPP, you will click BPP and you will type in the BPP. So I'm going to say these guys have 320,000 of BPP. Now, if this customer did not own the building, they just owned one unit in the building, and they're occupying that one unit in the building, you cannot call it building coverage because they don't own the entire building. The only time you will call it building coverage is when they own the entire building. What you will do, and I'm going to just uncheck building just to show you what happens, is if they own one unit and then they did some tenant improvement and betterment in that unit to run their business, this is where you will fill in that information. So let's say anything attached to the building or their tenant improvement and betterment was 500,000. This is where you'll put that in. You cannot put it under building coverage. But if they own the building, you do not have to put it in tenant improvement and betterment because anything that's attached to the building is included in the building coverage. Now, if that does not make sense, you can do a raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can ask that question later. Okay. There's a reason why I say that, and I'll elaborate a little bit later. So let's recalculate that. Let's put in my building value. I'm going to say I'm going to use the 1230553. My BPP, I can do include in blanket. We have some additional information. Other than the customer, are there the tenants in the building? Yes. And is it located in the shopping center? No. Okay. So these questions are also dynamic. So sometimes when you answer a question, it will bring up additional information. So once you're done with all your information for this location, if you had another location or you had a building at that location, you can go to the right-hand side here and you click add location or add building. Once you add additional locations or building, you're going to see them on a grid on the left-hand side here. And to get to each location or building, you simply click on that location or building, and then you'll be able to access the information for that location or building. Once you're done with your location, you simply click quote now, and that's going to rate your policy. Once you rate that policy, we are going to default a bunch of coverages, and we're going to land on what is called the quote summary page. When we land on the quote summary page, you are going to be able to scroll down and look at all the defaulted coverages. So it's coming up. You notice how it's building all the screens up here. So when you want to get to one of these screens, you can simply click on them and you can get to the screens. Anytime you quote a BOP, we will quote something called a core quote. If you want to see the difference between your quote and the core quote, simply click on this compare and it will show you the difference between your quote and the core quote. If you want to now work with the core quote, you can go over to the core quote and work with it. If you want to continue with your quote, you work with your quote. The main difference between these two is your core quote does not have these crime coverages and does not have equipment breakdown. So as you can see, there are dashes on here. Your quote have equipment breakdown and crime. So you have to decide which one of these you want to work with. When you make changes to your quote now, it does not get updated to your core quote. So here is where you want to make the decision which one of these two you are going to work with. I'm going to work with my quote because I want to have crime coverage and equipment breakdown on my policy. Okay. So we defaulted your GL, your med pay, your property deductible. You can click on these drop down. You can make any changes that you want on the screen. And then once you make changes on this first screen here, you can click re-rate on the top of the page and it re-rates that policy with any changes. Now, on the right-hand side here, you're going to see we have a list of coverages. These are recommended coverages for this type of business. You notice we called it similar customer purchase coverages. You know, like when you are in Amazon and you bought like a headset, my husband bought the other day, and then on the bottom it says customer that purchased this bought these other products. Basically, that's the concept. So all doctors' office, or majority of doctors' offices, select these coverages on the right-hand side. So you can go down the list and decide which one you want to add for your customer. If you see a coverage and you want to see that coverage and what's on that coverage, you simply click on the question mark, click on the blue hyperlink. Oh, great. They talked about this morning, and of course, Barbara is going to encounter it now. You click on it and it brings up the information on that coverage. So what I did, I simply went out and back in and it brought up the information. But this is what is on this Medical Dental Premier. You can review it. Some great coverages on here, like if they own the building, ordinance and law on that endorsement. Backup sewer and drain is on this endorsement. Lots of additional, extended business income, lots of additional coverages for that customer. So you can go in, look at it. They have spoilage. Why would a doctor's office need spoilage? Because they have medicine. So this is going to be very helpful for them if for any reason there is a claim, a cause of loss, something happened, those medicines spoil, they have spoilage coverage. So there is that medical dental endorsement. So if you want to add that, you simply click add. It brings up a page if there's any additional information, like if you want to give them some more computer fraud, their daily limit, you want to give them some additional business income on a daily limit, just simply click apply, and now it adds that coverage onto the policy. Let's say for any reason you are looking for coverage and that coverage is not listed in this grid up here. You can go down the bottom here where it says search or browse by category, and you can search and you can add that coverage. So let's say they want to add their additional insured for the manager of the building or something like that. You can just type in MANA, it brings it up, you can add it. Or you can go browse by category, click on the drop down and choose that category, and it shows you all the additional insured under that category, and you can choose them. So that's how you can add additional coverages here. If you want to modify coverage, you can go back to the coverage screen here and you can modify coverage. Someone called me yesterday and said, I added that Power Pack Premier and I don't want it. How do I remove it? Just go back to the coverage screen here, and that's how you will remove any coverages that's on that policy. And if they have multiple locations, you'll see the locations listed on the left here. You have to click on the location to get to the coverages for that location. So you can scroll down the list and you can delete any coverages. Okay. Once you're done, you go back, you quote now, or you click re-rate, and that will bring you back to the quote summary page. I do have a few more things to add, but Christina, do you want to chime in here? Is there anything I missed?
You're doing great, Barbara.
All right, thank you. Next, I'm going to show you the code proposal, the rating worksheet, and then we'll talk about pricing. Under this actions button here, or this resource button, we have additional things. But also over here, you see your code proposal or the more button, and you can access stuff. Up here, I'm going to go under action. Oh, no, not yet. Resources. This is your code proposal. It has an ITV letter that you can use to give the customer to show them how we came up with the replacement cost of the building. This is your code proposal. It is opening it up on my other screen. Once it's open, I'll drag it over here. This is your code proposal that you can use to give to the customer. It has the pricing, but it also has the breakdown of all the coverages. If you added any of those additional coverages, you will see that it is listed on here. You also have a link you can click on and print out that document to give to the customer. It will list all your policy forms. It will give you a spot for the customer to sign, and that becomes a binding document, and it gives you our payment plan options. We show the payment plan options only on the BOP proposal. So you can print this out and save it somewhere on your screen, because this payment plan option applies to all lines of business. It's the same payment plan we have for auto. It's the same payment plan we have for work comp, for umbrella, except work comp has something called draft pay, which is that pay as you go option that's different. But this is our payment plan. Anytime you choose 12 equal pay, it will be EFT. It means that you will have to have that customer's credit card or banking account information and their email address so that you can put it into the system, and they will get an email. They will have to access that email, acknowledge and approve. The travelers will go into their account and take their monthly billing out of their account, because we don't have a form for them to sign for EFT. They will get an email and they have to do it. They have to acknowledge that within 15 days of you issuing that policy. So anytime you do automatic recurring payment and we ask you to put in their email address, they have to approve that within 15 days of you issuing that policy. If they're going to mail in a paper check, we give you the mailing address. We give you the payment slip that they can fill in information and mail it in. If you are going to send in a payment to us, always remember account number, policy number, and that information you can attach. So that is our code proposal. The rating worksheet is for you, the agent, to know how we came up with that pricing. We wanted to give you a breakdown to help you when you are looking at the policy and how and what we charge for. But there's one thing on here, and this is not for the customer because this does have your proprietary information on there. But what you care about on here is auditable. Whether that policy is auditable or not. All your garage policies are auditable. All your work comp policies are auditable. All your manufacturers, your wholesalers, your contractors are auditable. But how are you going to remember all that stuff? I don't remember it. I'm just spilling it out off the top of my head. No, I'm kidding. But this is where you can tell whether a BOP policy is auditable or not. And then when it says it's auditable, you can educate your customer that that policy is an auditable policy. When it's coming up for expiration, we will send the audit document to the customer. We do not send the audit document to your agency. The only way your agency knows that we have sent that audit document to the customer is by looking at these two reports here. So these are reports that everyone should be reviewing to know when we cancel a policy or when we do an endorsement or renew a policy, or when we send out audit information to your customer. All right, so I kind of veered off a little bit there, but I talked about audit. What else? Discounts. Let's talk about credits.
That's the fun part, Barbara.
Yes, Christina, she will not let me be done without talking about credits. You have to kind of scroll down a little bit on the page, and it's called Ways to Save. So on BOP 2.0, we now have multiple ways by which you can get credits. If you take any of these, the policy will stay within your agency's authority. Multi-line discount is if you're going to write auto and work comp. It does not include umbrella. How do you remember that? If you click on it here, it's going to tell you. If you're writing an auto or work comp and you check that box and you hit save, you will get that multi-line discount. So for this doctor's office, we want their work comp. Paid in full. If you're going to pay in full, now when you click on it, you see we are giving you some messages here. It basically means you have to have their credit card or their banking account information at the time when you are issuing the policy, and then they will have the discount. But you have to check this box here. Close that. You have to check the box. Continue, Barbara. And then hit re-rate, apply the discount, and then go through and issue the policy and fill in their information. Okay.